I'm not disputing that. It's
The August 28th, 2023 regular City Council meeting is called to order. The time is 6 p.m. Before we begin, Council, please put away cell phones. If you have personal business here in the meeting, please move for a recess. If you are participating telephonically, please mute your phone unless speaking. Also, when speaking, please state your name for those streaming the meeting. As a reminder to all attendees, this meeting is being streamed live. The camera is located directly in the back of the council chambers above the clock. Robert's Rules of Order is the parliamentary authority for council meetings under Wasilla Municipal Code 204090. Under this authority, I respectfully request council observe the following. Kindly seek recognition before speaking. That no member speaks more than twice on the same motion without an affirmative vote on a motion to suspend the rules. That no member speaks a second time until everyone who wishes to do so has spoken once. The purpose of recognizing these rules is to ensure the right to speak is equally respected and that discussion is not dominated. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Here.
Councilmember Graham.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Vivak.
here.
Councilmember Rubeo.
Here.
You do have a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge, and Councilmember Johnson, please lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I got ahead of myself.
The first item of business is approval of the agenda. Before any amendments to the agenda are offered, I'd like to recognize Council Member Rubeo, who has a relationship to declare with Big Dipper Construction on AM number 23-39.
Thank you, Mayor. On the agenda tonight is AM number 2339, contract extension to Big Dipper Construction in the amount of $505,000 for the city fiscal year of 2023 equipment rental with operator contract. While I do not have a conflict of interest to declare, I want to make the public aware of my relationship with Big Dipper Construction. The company is owned by my father. He is not a member of my household, and I have no financial interest in his company. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there changes to the agenda?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Johnson.
I would like 8.2, introduction recommendation for hearing ordinance serial 2329 pulled to new business for discussion.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to pull 8.4.3, which is AM 2338 to new business.
That's what I just read the whole.
2319.
Yeah, what did I say?
I thought you said 29.
If I did, I.
Is there any further changes to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as, is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as amended. We are now at special orders of the day. There is one proclamation that I will now read. The City of Wasilla Proclamation recognizing September as Recovery Month. Whereas National Recovery Month focuses on raising awareness and understanding of mental and substance use disorders and celebrate the people who recover. And whereas preventing and overcoming mental and substance use disorder is essential to achieving healthy lifestyles both physically and emotionally. And whereas we must encourage relatives and friends of people with mental and substance use disorders to implement preventive measures, recognize the signs of a problem, and guide those in need to appropriate treatment and recovery support services. And whereas Recovery Month spreads the message that behavioral health is essential to health and one's overall wellness, and that prevention works, treatment is effective, and people recover. And whereas the impact of mental and substance use disorder is apparent in our local community, and individuals in communities throughout our state have achieved and sustained long-term recovery through behavioral health treatment programs. And whereas through Recovery Month, people become more aware and able to recognize the signs of mental and substance use disorder, which can lead more people into needed treatment. Now therefore I, Glenda D. Ledford, Mayor for the City of Wasilla, hereby proclaim and recognize September 2023 as Recovery Month in Wasilla and call upon our community to observe this month with compelling programs and events that support this year's observance, dated the 28th day of August 2023. We are now on to commission and agency reports. And Make a Scene magazine will report on music in the park.
Hello. Oh, that's louder than I thought. All right, my name is Bryce. I'm with Make a Scene Media. We help put together the Music in the Park event, and I'm going to give you guys a quick little recap. About me, I'm the general manager for Make a Scene. We're a locally owned media company here in the Valley. You might know us, we operate 95.5 The Pass, KNLT. We publish the free newspaper around town, the People's Paper, and Make a Scene magazine. And we offer a lot of other services, and we help with community events like Music in the Park, Friday Flings, Garden and Art Fair, etc. Music in the Park, for those who don't know, it started in 2005. I was 15. Music in the Park has grown into a beloved community tradition. This free event offers live music, merchant and artist vendors, food trucks, a beer garden, kids activities, and much more. In 2006, the year before we started Make a Scene magazine, was the first year that we worked with the city to put on Music in the Park. This was actually the inception of Make a Scene Media, so it all kind of came full circle when we started doing the event again. Our involvement in the event has shifted over the years, sometimes just sponsoring it, but in 2019 we resumed the responsibility of organizing the event in its entirety. New for 2023, the event was originally held every Friday in June traditionally, and we moved it to Saturday. It took a big effort to push and educate the community, but it was proven to be a wise decision. It's better for the vendors, the bands, the community. So Music in the Park is now a Saturday event, every Saturday in June. We've expanded the hours from 6 to 9 p.m. to 12 to 9 p.m. This, combined with moving it to Saturday, has opened us up to a wider range of attendees. The daytime attracts the young family crowd, and the evening catches those older concert goers who want to hang around and dance. The finale event, due to popular demand, the event continues to expand. In 2022, we introduced a big finale concert on the 4th of July after the parade and mayor's picnic. So that's a combined 5 days of events for Music in the Park, so every Saturday in June, and now the 4th of July finale event. We've added more music than ever before, featuring local and even nationally touring acts. We've introduced a new popular daytime event. It went awesome this year, the Music in the Park Talent Show. I'll show you a picture here in a bit. We've added more vendors, we're doing more giveaways and prizes, we added more chairs, tables, tents, and just try to make it a better experience for the community. And as always, the event remains free. We've added more musical acts, of course. You got a fine list of local touring acts of different genres, some nationally touring acts, some dancers, a wide range of content. You'll see there is the talent show winners pictured over there, and Lulu Small, she's an Alaskan legend, and a wide range. We had the Army Band come out and do a great job for multiple days. Attendance varies with weather and the music acts, but rain or shine, the event draws a significant crowd. And given the park's large layout and continuous foot traffic, it's really hard to estimate attendance because we're running around the park like crazy and we don't have anyone there clicking and counting, but typically there's about 50 to 500 people enjoying the music, with hundreds more walking around the park, enjoying the vendors, doing some of the activities. We introduced a slip and slide this year and all sorts of cool stuff. Throughout each day, on average, we host well over 1,200 people. Music in the Park distinguishes itself as a unique community event with a strong emphasis on music and arts. It's a rare occasion to witness a community vendor event like Music in the Park, where the attendees are engaged, dancing, grooving, and appreciating the music. This distinction has begun to set the city of Wasilla and Music in the Park apart as a destination for high-quality local entertainment. Going forward, Music in the Park is free, and it's made possible through the generosity of the city and our sponsors. We have a lot of great community sponsors, local businesses, nonprofits. Our aim to enhance the event with more music, bands, all ages entertainment requires increased funding, of course, as we plan to expand in 2024. We've leveraged our established relationships with sponsors, professional sound engineers, local media outlets, musicians, so we successfully execute this event on a pretty cost-effective budget. However, due to the event's free nature, reliance solely on the sponsorship and vendor fees poses a challenge for further expansion. So we at Make a Scene kindly request that the City of Wasilla and the City Council continue to support the expansion of Music in the Park and include the event in their budget considerations for 2024. But rest assured, we remain committed to organizing and enhancing the event to the best of our capacity and pocketbook. Thank you to the city. Thank you to Mayor Ledford, the City Council, and Scott at the Menard Center. Made it really easy to work with. So we got big plans for next year. Improve it, make it better, and blow it up even more. So if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to ask me here or reach out to me. Give me a call or shoot me an email. And yeah, that.
Colleen.
Well done. It's a real popular event and something that I know many of us have attended for several years. Can you tell me the dates that you presently have Music in the Park? And when you talked about expansion, are you looking at possibly expanding through the whole summer and just not maybe the, carve out of 1 month or?
Yeah, so we're constantly getting harangued by the people who come to expand all summer. So we got to take it a piece at a time, but right now it's every Saturday in June. Used to be Fridays, and then just the 4th of July, separate event. That's kind of the finale. We'd love ideally to expand the event to June and July and turn it more into a long-term summer event. There's challenges with that, of course, but yeah, we'd love to expand it however we can, even if that's adding just one more extra Saturday into July or maybe one at the end of May, or in whatever way we can expand it. We kind of want to test all options, basically.
That's fantastic, and I know, many are looking for family fun events, whether it's for your kids or grandkids, and this has been a real popular event, so.
Yeah, and
thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Madam Mayor, thank you for your work. I only was able to attend just one. It was really well received, at least on my account and my family. The question that I have is, in the valley here, we have several high schools. These high schools have both bands and orchestras as well as a community orchestra. Have we gone out and reached out to these organizations to establish a concert with our high schools or orchestras, bands as part of Music in the Park? I believe that such an activity would draw both parents and community to support the high schoolers who are, some of which are very, very good and talented musicians. Thank you.
That is a great idea. I just jotted it down. We did do a lot of outreach to local music teachers, the different schools that teach music for the talent show. So we basically reached out to get individuals for the talent show, but in a similar way, we really should, especially because in the afternoon and the earlier part of the day, like I said, it really caters to families, young people. If we can engage the community with a built-in audience by getting all the great local bands to come play from the schools and expand the talent show as well. So we had dancers and singers, but most of them individual acts, but I think getting a marching band up there, I kind of want to turn the whole park into a festive thing. So if we can get people marching around the park, I think that would be pretty awesome.
Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great presentation, and it's always, Music in the Park is always fun, whether it was Fridays or Saturdays. This year was different because it was Saturdays, and I think it was a wise move on your part. But could you refresh for me the amount of support that the city provides for you monetarily?
Yeah, let me pull up in my phone here. So the city provides $9,500 for the city, for the primary event, so the June concerts. The finale gets another $5,500. So all 6 days throughout the whole course of the event, the city contributes about $15,000 in total. So, and that, to put it in perspective, doesn't really cover the cost of even hiring the musicians and the sound guys. Of course, it's generous and very great, but we're always trying to expand and get bigger acts. So $15,000 would be the total contribution for both events.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott?
Scott Bell, Recreational Service Director. Yeah, so it's $9,500 for the June series. 4th of July is $5,500, but that also includes the mayor's picnic, music, and sound. So it's that whole day. They make the arrangements, but that's for the picnic, sound, and band, and then also the finale.
We also, to add on, yeah, we booked the music for the mayor's picnic and all that. So, yeah, that's correct. Thank you, Scott.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. That was fun.
We are now at public participation. There's one ordinance scheduled for public hearing this evening. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Amending Wasilla Municipal Code, Chapter 540, entitled Disposition of Property in Possession of Police Department to amend WMC 540-010 disposable property definitions to update general definitions and define valuable found property, safekeeping property, and apparent ownership to subject found property valued at $100 or more, to notice and return procedures, amend Wasilla Municipal Code 540-020, notice of possession to authorize notifications on the city website and social media, and clarify notice requirements for valuable found property and safekeeping property, amending Wasilla Municipal Code 540-030, disposition, and repeal Wasilla Municipal Code 540-050, notification of sale costs fee, to authorize return of valuable found property to finder upon proper request without cost, and repealing Wasilla Municipal Code 540-040, dedication of abandoned, stolen, or found bicycles, to subject bicycles to the same disposition as other property, amend Wasilla Municipal Code 540-060, dangerous or perishable property, or property of minimum value, immediate disposal, to authorize post-disposal notice, and amending Wasilla Municipal Code Section 104-010 definitions to add a definition for newspapers of general circulation that includes the City of Wasilla website and social media pages.
The public hearing on ordinance serial number 2318 is open. Anyone who would like to testify, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Seeing no one, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2318?
Madam Mayor, I move 23-18.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second that.
It's been moved by Councilmember Brown and seconded by Councilmember D. Locke to adopt ordinance serial number 2318. Is there discussion? Mr. Brown?
Madam Mayor, did the chief of police come up and just kind of synopsize what situation this will solve and the problems he's having while this is being introduced?
To Councilmember Brown, through the mayor, I'm actually going to defer to Amanda. She was the curator that worked diligently on this and probably has a better understanding of all this than I do. So I'd like to defer to her for more clarification.
Put you in the spotlight because he didn't want to come up.
Hello, my name is Amanda Graham. I am the administrative assistant at Wasilla Police Department. I have worked in that position since 2015, and I've been with the police department since 2013, so I've got a pretty well-rounded view of department operations, especially when it comes to property disposal.
Amanda, could you sit a little closer to the mic, please? Thank you.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Do I need to repeat myself? Okay. So the main issues that we were having with the current policy for this was it was vague and it was not cost effective. In the old ordinance, there were requirements for sending stuff out via certified mail, which is an additional cost. There was also requirements for posting in the local newspaper, which, when we broke down the cost of that, it was prohibitive to how often we have to send these letters out, which is on a pretty constant basis. As far as the other changes that are in here, disposing of bicycles, non-valuable property, that kind of thing, we just wanted to make sure that it was codified so that everybody was on the same page regardless of any personnel turnover or any questions that came up as far as what our policies and procedures were with the police department and if they varied at all from city code, which obviously we never want. Generally speaking, in here, we clarified a lot of the language. We clarified how found property is handled. So if somebody brings something to the police department, let's say they find a kayak on the side of the road, doesn't have registration on it, we have no way of tracking down who the owner is. We've looked on social media to see if anybody's posted anything that was lost. If they've lost it, we've checked our internal law enforcement systems, such as CAD, to see if anybody had reported losing the kayak. The person who brought it in, even by the old code, had a right to say, hey, if you guys don't find the owner, I would like to claim this. It clarifies that process a bit. That way we don't have to worry about, okay, so we've held it for 30 days. Now we have to send a letter out. They have to write to us directly saying that they would like to get a cop or get the found item that's worth money. It shortens that process up, which frees up our space physically at the police department, which, as we all know, space is always a premium, especially for large objects. So it allows them to come into the police department when they turn it in, or we go and get it, and just let us know verbally, as long as we get contact info from them, that we can call them and say, hey, nobody's claimed this, we've posted it in the places that are required. Would you like to come get the item still? And then they can come and get it. As far as where we post found items, I have personally found that social media has been extremely handy. We also wanted to make sure that the city website, which is our primary method of communication for the city getting information out to the public, that it was included in there. That way nothing got missed. If somebody doesn't have social media, we don't want them missing out because we found something. So it codifies through all of our processes for property disposal.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Johnson?
I'm sorry, your name was Amanda?
Amanda, yes.
Amanda, I'm sorry. In general, I understand for low-value items, the cost-effectiveness of reaching out to the public in terms of disposition, getting the public aware of what's going on. For a small-value item, say under $1,000, I think maybe streamlining the process, which is probably the bulk of your issues,
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, so in here, it's actually even lower than that. So if I remember correctly, it's less than $100. And that is a lot of our items. However, we also aggregate it together. So if somebody turns in a backpack and it's got a bunch of $5 or $10 items in there, we want to make sure that it's not stuck together. One of the things that we had been doing up to this point was we would gather like 30 or 40 small items, like grouped together items such as like pocket knives, just a bunch of them. We would end up storing those and then bringing them in for auction, for the auction. This allows us to dispose of those as needed.
I understand for smaller value items, I think the policy is sort of directed at that. My real concern with the policy, though, is what happens to a higher value item. For instance, I'll give you a true example. My daughter lost her wedding ring, not in this city. It was found 6 months later. It was probably returned to the police department or whatever. It's a high value item. Within 30 days, after a certain amount of months, there's just no way there's going to be time for the person to even realize that the item has been found in order to be able to claim it. So I'm a little bit worried about the value on it, the fact that On a higher value item, we're not making all effort to reach out to our community that the item has been found, and then to establish a 30-day period seems to be very restrictive for high value items. So as it would stand right now, unless we can correct for high value items, I don't support this.
So I understand your concern, absolutely, because we've had that situation happen before. We actually had somebody turn in a bunch of, they were class rings. We didn't have a way of testing whether or not the gems in them were real, but they were definitely at least sentimental value at a minimum. In that situation, we used every possible way of getting information out there to the public. Some of these were from the 70s. I mean, these were old class rings that if somebody lost them 20 years ago, there's no way that they would know, right? So we searched. We went from the individual schools to look them up to figure out if we could find contact information for family members or the actual students. We had them on our social media page. We got a lot of word of mouth out for those, and we returned all of them. We had 5. They were all returned, and they were all from the years, I think the earliest one was the mid-70s, and the latest one was in the mid-80s. For high-value items such as that, we take every precaution. We try to get those items back. If a ring is lost, let's say somebody loses a diamond solitaire, just like your daughter's situation, there are methods that we have of seeking that stuff out. A lot of diamonds nowadays are serialized. If you have an item that is serialized that you lose and you report that to the police department, it goes into the national system called NCIC if it's over a certain dollar amount. It also goes into our city's RMS system for the police department, and we can search by the serial number. So I can assure you that on high value items like firearms, which come in pretty regularly, unfortunately, we have ways of tracking down owners after the fact. We also go back in time, essentially, by looking through found property reports. So we can go in and I can see the Alaska State Troopers, I can see Palmer Police Departments, I can see nationally, in some cases, lost items. So we would search in our system back as far as we can for a lost solitaire or a lost diamond or whatever it may be. So we do all of our due diligence because we honestly do not want to hold on to these items. We don't have the space. And of course, as you know, risk mitigation, we don't want to return something or auction something off that has a rightful owner that's been looking for it.
Mr. Gray?
So Amanda, you were talking about earlier about how you put lost items on the social media page. Is it like Facebook?
The Wasilla Police Department Facebook page, yes.
Okay, but here I am looking at the City of Wasilla, what is this, webpage? I don't speak this language, website. And I look under police and there's nothing on here about lost and found at all.
That is correct. That is because we have not built that out. It will take me about 5 minutes once this has passed for me to get that up and running. We've got a couple different options for posting on there. I think that the best way to do it is with a photo, a description of the item, and when it was found. We don't want to put too much detail out there, just like we don't on our social media posts, because we don't want somebody scrolling through them and be like, oh, that's pretty nice. I'd like to take that home with me. But it would mirror very closely what we put out on our social media page, what has been posted in the newspaper previously, with the addition of being able to have actual photos if possible. If that means that we've got a diamond solitaire, for instance, and what we do is we cover up the setting with a piece of paper so somebody can see the band, or we just have a picture of the engraving. That is worked pretty well for the class rings that I cited as an example. We posted all those photos up, different angles, so people could see markings, and it has worked out really well in the past.
And how many hits do you get on that
It's been,
Facebook page or whatever it is?
oh, how big is our Facebook page?
Yeah, how many people look at it?
I will tell you right now. So our social media page, currently we have 20,537 followers, which is a lot more than we had when we had that original post that I was talking about. But our current audience, 20,000.5. Our Instagram's only not real big. Let me pull up our most recent post that had insights at? So in the last 28 days, our Facebook page has reached 51.1 thousand people, which is down about 50% from the month before. So our page reaches a significant portion of our population, not just within the city of Wasilla, but obviously surrounding areas. I can tell you pretty much exactly where they're from for the most part. They
I
are.
don't need that kind of detail.
Yeah, I mean, I can get in there with you. But our reach is very high. It's been a long time since I've posted a found property item on there that was unsuccessful. I think the most recent found property item that I put on there technically would not have fallen into the valuable property category for something that we would post found property on, but it was human remains. It was a cremation necklace that somebody had lost and somebody else had turned in. We did find the owner, and those are not serialized. Those are pretty generic when you consider, how many different versions of those necklaces there are out there. We found the owner and was able to return it to him. So we have real-world examples of this working, and we are confident that it will continue to work.
Other follow-up, if I may, and so obviously you're the expert in the police department in this world here. So did you draft or work on this draft of the change to the ordinance? I mean, could I ask you questions
Yeah.
about wording on the ordinance? If that's
Yeah,
all right?
absolutely. I worked on it with the city clerk's help and with direct input from the chief and our property custodian.
Okay, so one question I have, first one, I'm looking at line 48 here on page 2 of 11 here. It says mayor, and this is under definitions, it says mayor means the mayor of the city of Wasilla or the mayor's designee. And later on, it talks about the chief or the chief's designee. So is there some sort of chain there? If the mayor says it's up to the chief, and then the chief says it's up to somebody else, then the mayor or the city council doesn't have any idea who's making those decisions? Is that chain permissible in this, or was it intended to be permissible in this?
I mean, the idea is that where the mayor or mayor's designee is mentioned, she would be, or could be deferring to the chief. At that point, we do have a chain of command within the city department where it goes to the evidence custodian, who would be the primary person responsible for carrying out the requirements in this. So
that would be the only other link in the chain, so to speak.
yeah, it would go down to the property and evidence custodian, she is the expert in her field when it comes to evidence handling, property disposal.
Okay, then the other question I have for you, that talks out on line 54 here, newspaper of general circulation includes but is not limited to the Frontiersman, the city website, and the city's social media page. You were talking earlier about cost efficiencies, so in the back of my mind, I'm thinking you're getting rid of the Frontiersman and you're just doing the electronic stuff. Is the Frontiersman required or a print publication required in addition to the electronic media, or?
It is an option. We did not want to limit ourselves. Another option from that, as it states in there, but
I don't think that's answering the question. The question is, can you do only digital, or does some sort of print media have to be involved, whether it's the Frontiersman or Magazine isn't the question. The question is there going to be print as well as electronic? I'll be quite honest with you, I never look at Facebook and I never look at our webpage unless I'm sitting here in front of it. But
yeah, it can be an option. We did not want to limit ourselves to only the Frontiersman as it was previously. If we are posting something on the Frontiersman, I can't imagine a situation where they would have more of a reach than both the city website and our city social media pages. The City Hall also has a bulletin board that it can be posted on, and the PD also has a bulletin board that it can be posted on for print. The way that it's written in here, we did not want to limit ourselves to only the Frontiersman, or should another newspaper come up in the Mat-Su Valley that gains a lot of readership, we didn't want to limit ourselves to excluding them as well.
well, the way you answered that question, I'm interpreting it to mean that you could skip, you could do electronic publication only, just in case you were curious how I was hearing what you were saying there. So thank you.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Brown?
Yes. I guess more so to Joan, the fiscal note along with this. Could you address any fiscal note attached to this resolution?
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to catch that.
Yeah. Just looking for the. Page. Instagram.
Mr. Brown, what page are you referring to?
I just wanted to see if there any concerns from Finance Committee about, Finance Chairman about the cost to implement this policy.
To Councilmember Brown, through the mayor, Finance Director Joan Miller. I'm sorry, I didn't interpret your question correctly. You know, we all know the high cost of publication, and sometimes is that an effective method to do the task that we're trying to achieve? So there's always that, you know, are you getting the juice from the squeeze? So I think in today's world, it makes sense. I am a reader of the Frontiersman. I am not a social media person, but I know from the people I work with that absolutely is a huge form of communication. I think the attachment to our website, because I am not, I go to websites, I don't go to Facebooks, I think is the key part of making that access to everyone. So I would support it from a fiscal standpoint in reaching out to the people.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson?
Mayor, thank you. I'd like to just ask a follow-on question. I applaud your efforts at finding owners of very sentimental and higher value items. I think that's commendable, and I'd like to see that obviously encouraged and to continue, which is the beginning point of my first statement. My fear is the way that things are worded, after you have left and after we have a different police chief, they look at the rule and they say, I have 30 days to get rid of this stuff and I'm going to do that, without making the kind of efforts that you have told us that you do. And I applaud those efforts because that's exactly what I think our citizens would expect you to do. But I would like to see our ordinance basically be drafted so that that kind of procedures would be incorporated into the rulemaking, so that it isn't just a 30-day period. We're going to just put it out on social media, you know, for some of these items. That's my concern. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Graham?
Madam Mayor, I have an amendment to this ordinance, serial 2318. However, I think I need to discuss with the clerk first to find out exactly where that is, since this ordinance essentially is an amendment. But I can say that I am uncomfortable with the newspaper circular of general circulation, so if allowed by the clerk, if appropriate by the clerk, I would like to amend line 55 after the period to add, and notification must be made via a circulated printed publication as well as digital media.
Can you repeat that,
Yes, ma'am.
please, sir?
So after the period, and notification must be made via a circulated printed publication as well as digital media, period. I'm not sure if that belongs here or if it needs to actually be in the code. Can we take a few minutes and look at that if the clerk needs time?
If I may, through the chair to the council, so this definition, so the definition of newspaper of general circulation currently doesn't exist in the Wasilla Municipal Code under our main overarching definitions in Title I, 104.010. So absolutely, any massaging to the definition we're proposing is in order.
It's in order by amending this amendment, essentially. So, Madam Mayor, I make that amendment.
Through the chair to Holly, did you have something to add?
Yes, just one thing to note, if we're going to require notification, we want to do that in the body of the code. I mean, and so yes, to what, just to add to what the city clerk is saying, we absolutely can play with the language of the definition, but to the extent we mandate conduct, which requiring publication in a newspaper, written newspaper, we'll want to do that in the section of the code that, because when people are looking, a lot of people are reading a code provision, they should not need to go to the definitions, right? They shouldn't, for the basic act. A lot of times they'll go there to find out the sort of nitty-gritty on an act, but we don't want them feeling they have to go there to know they even have to, or they have or the city, the department to go there to know they have to publish in a particular location. That makes sense. So, but that change, it should not be a problem. We would just need to incorporate it into the body of the code.
However, this amendment could stand, my amendment to this amendment could stand alone. You don't need to.
No, so the newspaper of general circulation definition was put into the code because a very interesting thing happened, or interesting to me anyway, with Title 29. And that was that the state of Alaska amended its statutes to allow it to publish its notices online in the state of Alaska public notice system. Some aspects of the city's work under Title 29 didn't change because the definition for publication didn't change. Others did, and so we are constantly dancing that line to make sure we're providing notice that complies with the statute as it applies to cities and taking advantage of the notice provisions that apply to the city otherwise. So that is a very complicated answer to that definition, but that is why it's in there. That's in there to make it very clear that we are complying with state law and city law, and the department worked really hard to make sure that we have that proper notification. We can definitely add the mandate that a publication in a written document be, or in a written form of newspaper of general circulation, but then we really don't need the definition anymore because we will be complying with the newspaper of general circulation definition in Title 29. So what we did is we created a definition that let the city expand its notice options. If we don't want to expand them, they can always add it on the Facebook page or the website. They don't need a law to do that. This allowed them to do exactly what you're saying, which is use those tools to reach their users in the community and in some instances not to use a hard copy newspaper of general circulation. So if we want to add that in, we can just take the definition out altogether, and then it should do what you are aiming to do. But we'd want to make sure we finesse the language.
So from a legal standpoint, given the option of A, deleting that definition, or B, adding this proposed amendment, from a legal standpoint, which is there a preferred legal option there?
I mean, I would want to look at it again. I think we should take a moment if we're going to do that just to make sure we get the language right. But I think that the purpose of the change is to allow the department the flexibility to post electronically. So if you're going to change that so that they are still obligated to post in writing or in print. I hope I'm using that.
Print.
You know, which is okay. That's absolutely appropriate. But if we're going to do that, we want to change the body of the text and probably get rid of that newspaper of general circulation provision, and maybe.
But by saying newspaper of general circulation, it doesn't limit their department or any other department from additionally posting it via digital.
Yes, they don't need a law to allow them to do that, though. I mean, you know, they could write it in the sky on a balloon if they want to, and that's wonderful, and that'd be very helpful, right? I mean, I'm not being facetious, but I'm just saying, they can do whatever they want to do to get that information out there, and that's great. This was actually changing how they must get that information out there.
And the current law says they must use a printed, circulated publication. Is that correct? And as this stands here, that would negate the need to use a printed, circulated publication.
Well, and I think, and I'll let Amanda speak to this because she'll be able to do it better, but my understanding from the department was that they are reaching tens of thousands of people online, and that has become a more effective tool for them. And so they were looking to, for the cost efficiencies and sort of that, dare I say, modernization or the notification provisions in the way that the state has taken that step as well. You know, so they were just trying, I think that was the goal. Is that correct? And I'll let Amanda.
Yeah, the goal was definitely to modernize and bring us up to at least a similar level to what the state has done. Like Attorney Wells stated, was that the state no longer puts things in the newspaper. I hate to say it because we've got a member who publishes newspapers, but print media is dying. That is why the readership counts are so low. I don't know anybody that is present company excluded. I personally don't know anybody at home that reads a newspaper.
You now know at least one person.
I know a few, but for the most part, the targeted audience of our Facebook page reaches a much broader audience. And by limiting us to where we have to post in the Frontiersman, and of course, as I said, we posted on our social media page before, but having to post in the Frontiersman was becoming a situation like what Director Miller had stated, where it is not worth it for the city monetarily and financially to continue posting in those newspapers because of what it costs to actually put legal notices in. Same reason why the state quit doing it.
I'm done with my asking questions. If you want to see if there's a second and we go on from there, I think that might be appropriate.
Okay, do you want to make an amendment?
I have made the amendment.
Okay.
Well, no, yeah, is there a second?
Is there a second?
Not sure.
Hearing none.
Could we read the amendment, please? Thank you.
Court, do you want to do that or do you want me to do it? So the amendment would be to line 55 on page 2 of 11, ordinance serial number 2318. Following the words social media page, period, we would add a new sentence that starts, and notification must be made via a circulated printed publication as well as in digital media.
Is there a second? Hearing none, the amendment dies, lacking of a second. So we are back to the original motion. Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor, may I make an amendment to line 55? The amendment would read, printed media must be made for high value, I'll let you figure out what high value is, and sentimental items.
Can I make a suggestion? So in there, because we define valuable found property, I would recommend putting a number on that if you're going to put that in here, because we define valuable found property elsewhere.
Defer to our legal counsel.
Do we have a second?
Second.
So Councilmember Johnson, what I think you would want to do to accomplish the same goal is to amend, if you go to line 142 or 141, you would amend subsection A there to say, the police chief shall publish identification of valuable found property on the city website or the city social media page for a period of at least 30 days. Or maybe, and if the valuable property item, and then what are we looking for, what type of property are we looking for?
Valuable items like $1,000 or a sentimental value like rings or antiques or whatever the sentimental value could be. I mean, there's a whole host of things that you'd want to. The intent would be to reach as large an audience as you can in those limited functions, and not be just simply put it up on a Facebook page that I'm not a member of the Facebook page, would never see.
So maybe, so for a period of at least 30 days, and valuable found property over $1,000 in value in a printed newspaper for
Yes.
a period of an additional 30 days.
Yes.
Or I don't know. I mean, how does the newspaper work when you hand over that?
I understand the spirit that you're going for, and I think an appropriate amendment to kind of catch the spirit of what you're looking for is valuable found property on the city website or the city social media page for a period of at least 30 days. And in the case that the valuable found property is valued at more than $1,000, or the valuable found property could be sentimental in nature, be additionally posted for 30 days in a printed newspaper. Does that sound right?
Take an Addie's and put it in writing,
Yes.
if I may.
Okay, we are going to take an Addie's for 5 minutes.
And additionally, I recommend as the attorney a definition of sentimental.
Yes.
The sentimental can,
Yeah.
The water bottle.
Yes.
yes, it could be, so we may want to leave some subjective.
So, because valuable is more intimate. Sure.
I think we're trying to force the police department to use common sense instead of using fiscal sense. No, they're still doing what they're doing, but we're just requiring them to use a newspaper, not put something on a bulletin board at Fred Meyer's. That's not printed, and that's not general circulation. The fiscal note stays the same as it is now. It doesn't increase. That's what we're doing now. We're not increasing it.
Why don't you not use that stuff I want?
She said they were,
It's only I don't want
because they're required
replacement.
to do that.
Through and say, I got
But the thing I'm going to bring up, and I didn't even do that since we're here. The thing I'm going to bring up is there's no need for us to have a legal notice. We can just put it in the classifieds. You know, legal notices is where we get a bunch of money gets spent on legal notices because they have to be a certain format and so on and so forth. But if you found something in your gym, you don't have to put it in legal notices that you found something, you know.
It is 7:02. And
Madam Attorney.
Madam Attorney.
Okay, so one of the things that I struggled with was defining sentimental. It was not an easy word to define, and I would recommend we leave that word out, mainly because what is sentimental to one person may be very different than what is sentimental to another. I did try to craft a definition using gems and stones and precious metals and things over 50 years, and every time I got close to what I thought would be a viable definition, it was very easy to identify ways that that would not work. So I think using value might be the best approach, and trust that the department, understands the importance of that. So with that said, the amendment, one other thing, so after talking with the police chief and Amanda, they did recommend that the value be raised from 1,000 or more to 5,000 or more based on the cost of things. So that will be a decision that the amendment maker will need to consider. But I will read it with the original $1,000 amount. So this would be a motion to amend ordinance serial number 23-18 on line 141, adding a period after days and the following language. If the apparent owner is not located within 30 days and the valuable found property has an estimated value of $1,000 or more, the police chief shall publish an identification of that valuable found property in printed newspaper of general circulation for an additional 30 days.
Councilmember Johnson and Mr. Graham, you were the seconder?
It's good with him, I'm good with that.
Okay. We are voting on the amendment as read by the city attorney, as made by Councilmember Johnson, read by the city attorney.
Discussion?
Further discussion on the amendment?
And
Second.
we do have a second, and we're going to discussion. Mr. Brown?
The mayor, for clarification, is all found items now published for 30 days?
I am not 100% sure. I would have to double check with Carrie. I think it is based on the non-definition that we had of valuable. I'm not sure the last time that we had something posted in the paper for 30 days due to the success we've had with found property. Either we just find the owner or it being posted on our social media.
The reason I asked the question through the mayor is because if we're not doing it now, so we published for 30 days, which just increased the fiscal note for this regulation, and now to add another 30 days to that, I'm just concerned about the cost of doing that.
I believe in the current, the way that the statute, that's not the right word, the way the code reads currently is that it would be posted, so it would not change the financials. Am I correct in that?
Finance Director, my only concern is when we say published for 30 days in the newspaper, so does that mean Fridays, Sundays, Wednesdays for 30 days? Because that would be extremely expensive.
And Madam Mayor, if I could, the current code says that the police chief shall publish in a local newspaper on 2 occasions in a 30-day period. So that, I think maybe those words need to be in there on 2 occasions within the 30-day period as opposed to 30 days. Keep it the same.
Thank you.
Does that need to be an amendment, Madam Attorney, since it's being stricken here in line 141? We need to amend the amendment?
No.
Or what do we need to
I
do?
think if the council agrees, Holly, if that's the intent of Mr. Johnson and Mr. Graham, we're making sausage, and so maybe we can come up with an amendment that everyone agrees on.
Leave it as is your recommendation.
Let her.
I agree that that is a very good idea, and we should add and limit it to 2 posted twice and a printed, what do we call it? A printed newspaper of general circulation, 2 times, or, you know,
Two occasions within a
on 2
30.
occasions. Yes, we should mirror the language that's in there. I think that's a great idea,
Thank you.
and probably a very cost-effective one.
Do you have any objection to that change, Mr. Young?
Acceptable.
Is there
Okay.
further discussion on the amendment?
Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Well, again. I gave everybody else a chance.
Okay.
Again, the $1,000 versus $5,000, are you open to adjustment there.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Brown, I think $5,000 is more than my wedding band. Okay, and it is those kind of things. I mean, whether it's 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever, that's a little bit squishy. But I think 5,000 is like way over the top. I don't know many people who have $5,000 wedding rings. I could be wrong, but maybe my perspective has changed with the economy.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I think I'm really not for the amendment. I'm not for changing this, and the reason is print is dying. And at MTA, I did the phone book for 20 years. Believe me, there's a lot of research, and I hated that thing to go. That was kind of a lot of job security there. But I don't use it either. And I have the Frontiersman and I have the print. But if I lost something and I knew that there's a certain way that the police department posts their lost things online, or, regardless if it's social media on their website, I would know to go there. I don't know if I would go to the newspaper. I think I would go to a website and look for where all this stuff is listed. And so I am not for the city incurring these costs of publications and the work that goes into it. Paper is labor intensive. I mean, it just is. So that's just my thoughts.
Is there further discussion? Mr. Johnson?
Nikki, if I might respond, the issue in my mind isn't necessarily where the item is lost. My daughter doesn't live in the city of Wasilla. A non-city person would be here in the city and loses something, would have no idea to even go to a Facebook page here in the city of Wasilla, whereas at least there would be a hope that the Frontiersman, which goes much further than the city of Wasilla, but goes to the whole Matsu Valley, as well as Palmer, would have at least a chance. And the idea is not that we would trying to save a buck just because printed media is going out of style. And I do agree with you, it is going out of style. But the object here is to make as much notification as we can without hiding things, because people are not aware of social media. That's my intent. Thank you.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things to follow up. Anybody that's been in my garage would know that I probably have 6 tools for everything. I probably have 6 hammers. I have a ball peen hammer to work on sheet metal. I have a heavy framing hammer to do framing. I have a finish hammer to work on finish sorts of things. These are all tools that do the same thing, the same general thing, but different tools do things at a different level and with a different level of precision. So when we look at social media, why don't we just use the Facebook page instead of using the Facebook page and the city website? Well, different people look at that. So why do we then have the Frontiersman continue to be some of that? Because different people look at that. They're all different tools to accomplish the same thing. And while you may say, well, we really don't need a ball peen hammer because, we don't use it that often. But when we need it, it's there for us to use. And part of the purpose of the multiple avenues of publication is word of mouth. How often do you learn about something through word of mouth versus seeing it on the website versus seeing it on the newspaper? One of your neighbors says, "Oh, hey, I saw your daughter lost a wedding ring, and there's one in the newspaper that the police department says." That word of mouth only happens when that initial contact gets out there. And that initial contact still gets out through the phone book. I just got my phone book the other day
I
from.
know, and do you see how tiny it is?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
I did it.
But I still get it every day, and I still keep it.
I keep it, but I have
You
to
know,
say I
and
don't.
sometimes I use it because it's a tool, because I very rarely get this thing to do what I want it to do. So I think Mr. Johnson is right, you know, I mean, we need to continue to publish things there for the 30 days like we currently do. And we need to make sure that we're taking advantage of the newer media opportunities like you have been. But the big thing is we're trying to reunite people with their property, and we're not increasing any cost to the city by doing that. So I vote in favor of the amendment.
Chief Rapson?
Yes, Mayor. I may have missed this, or I'm not processing it correctly, and I believe that on the amendment and the idea that I'm having with Amanda is that whatever the dollar amount amendments decided by council, you know, that's in the ordinance. However, you know, we're adding the social media pages and the website to add in addition to the newspaper. And I guess my thought process is that we've had very large success rate in finding owners through social media first. And what I'm looking for is, if I have a large audience through social media and I'm finding that owner, then why pay for that high publication cost when I'm finding the owner through social media? And my proposal would be, or my recommendation would be, after social media attempts fail to find the owner after 30 days, then we have to decide to go into publication. And maybe that was brought up, maybe it isn't, I missed it, but I don't want to really bear that expense if 90% of my found property is through social media, and if we don't find who an owner is, then they're not opposed to putting it into the publication, where on every single found item, I gotta pay for that publication, where if there's only 2 items a year that I have to put in there for the 2 cycles of newspaper, then we can pay that expense where it's a much lesser cost than just putting it out for publication on every single time there's a found item. So that's my proposal, is if we don't find an owner through social, then we go to in publication through a newspaper.
For the over $1,000 or whatever.
Whatever dollar amount is decided.
I just want to clarify that was the chief's, that was incorporated into the motion.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because I'm sorry apologies if I missed it, I just
No,
was
that's
making
perfect.
sure that I understood it.
And that was, we made those
Okay.
comments earlier, and they're in there, so it should reflect, it should be what you guys are looking for.
So that I'm clear, Madam Mayor, based on what the chief said and what the attorney said, so we will use social media as our primary means, and then if that doesn't work, then we will add an additional 30 days for high-value items in the printed matter that is circulated. Is that?
For 2 circulations or 2 publications within the 30 days.
Is that what I'm hearing? So we're going to add another 30 days to the keeping the property essentially out of disposal. Is that how everybody understands it? Thank you, Chief.
Okay, is there further discussion on the amendment?
Is there any objection?
Is there objection to the amendment?
I object.
Colleen?
I'm going to call the question, Madam Mayor.
Roll call vote.
Thank you. Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
No?
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
No.
Councilmember Velock.
No.
Councilmember Rubeo.
No.
Madam Mayor, that amendment fails with Councilmembers Graham and Johnson in favor, Councilmembers Sullivan Leonard, Brown, Velock, and Rubio opposed. Before you is the main motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2318 as is.
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Graham?
I propose an amendment to whatever we're talking about here. Is it 2318? Okay. So I propose an amendment to 2318, looking at page 7 of 11, line 172 or thereabouts. We will add the sentence, "Found cash will be returned to the finder if remaining unclaimed for more than 30 days. found cash will be returned to the finder if remaining unclaimed for 30 days. So I'm not sure where the exact
Mr. Graham has made the motion on the found cash. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor. So it's not unusual for people to find cash. And ideally, that cash would be turned into the police department. But a lot of times, people don't do that because they know exactly what this document says, that the city's just gonna keep that cash if they don't find the owner. All I'm saying here is we're giving people more than a reasonable expectation to be able to get that cash back if it's unclaimed, whether it's $50 or whether it's $15,000. If I turn that in, if I turn in a bag of cash that I found, outside the drive-through at the bank that somebody intended to deposit, but for whatever reason they don't come back and claim it, it shouldn't go to the city, it should go to the finder. Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Colleen?
I guess I really question this amendment because 172, number 4, gives proper indication on if money is found, whether it's from someone who's dropped their deposit or they found cash at Fred Meyer's parking lot or wherever. It sounds like it's pretty well stated within here, and maybe I could ask Amanda and just see too. I mean, are you getting large amounts of cash for various reasons, and if so, are you following certain code then for disposal of the fund?
We treat cash the same as property. Obviously, you can't destroy cash though. So like the weird stuff we get in that has zero value that we throw away, we don't do that with cash. As far as how often we get found cash, surprisingly often we get it turned in. Last winter, we had like 3 different instances where somebody found over $500 in cash in a local parking lot on 2 separate occasions, 2 different local parking lots. It was really bizarre. And in here, that section that you're referencing, Councilmember Graham, is specific to stating that if the found property, which the notice will already have been, like the person who turned it in will already say, yes, I want it when it's done, that just indicates legally that the city may be depositing it into the account if it remains unclaimed after that 30 days. If a finder comes in, any found property that comes in, whether it's valuable or not, we find out whether or not that person that found it wants to claim it, unless it's something like an ID card or car keys, that kind of thing that could be security related. If somebody turns in a Coach wallet that's completely empty and we have no way of finding the owner, and yeah, it might be worth $25 or whatever, I'm fine with, we would give it back to the apparent finder or to the finder of the property. So
Is there a policy that says that if I turn in cash to you, I find the $5,000 or $500 or whatever it is, I turn that cash into you, that you get my name and number and ask me if nobody claims it, do I want the cash back? Because this says cash money that remains unclaimed will be considered abandoned and unclaimed property and may be deposited into the city treasury and become property of the city.
Yeah, so in here, if you are on,
And Madam Mayor, it was my question, I was discussing this.
I'm so sorry.
Not Mr. Graham.
Yeah, it's listed in there that would be found. I mean, if it's found, we're gonna give it to the finder if they want it. If somebody comes in and is like, I'd rather not have $600, which would be kind of nothing. It just gives us the opportunity to not hold on to $600 for however long.
Right, and just to follow up, Madam Mayor,
So sorry.
your answer is spot on, and I appreciate that. I mean, how many times, again, which you have illustrated, that you are getting cash that comes to you. Many times there would probably be a deposit slip in the envelope, or it could be just like you said, $500. That maybe somebody's Christmas shopping and been lost at Fred Meyer's or something. So it looks like you already have something in place that would help to make sure that that money gets back to its rightful owners. So for that, I don't support the amendment. Thanks.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Is there objection to the motion?
Object.
Would you like me to take a roll call vote,
Yes,
Madam
please.
Mayor? And this is on amendment number 2, which on line 176-ish, we're gonna put in, found cash will be returned to the finder if remaining unclaimed for 30 days. Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown.
No.
Councilmember Villar.
No.
Councilmember Rubio.
No.
Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
No?
Madam Mayor, that fails with Councilmembers Graham and Johnson in favor, Sullivan Leonard, Brown, Villar, and Rubio opposed. Before the body is a motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2318 as is.
Is there further discussion on the original motion?
Madam Mayor?
Colleen?
Thank you. I just want to commend the police chief and Amanda for your work on this, and our attorney as well. It's nice when we can get our particular codes up to modern standards, if you will. I'm one of those that I'm kind of homebound at this point, and so I do rely on the internet a lot, as well as Facebook and other social media areas. And so, when you look to see if something's been lost, quite honestly, Facebook does have a Matsu lost and found, and I've seen items there. And I think your example of the remains that were in a locket, I was just so incredibly just relieved that somebody did find it and got it back to its owner very quickly. And so anyway, I'm glad that we're kind of getting up into the modern world, and appreciate the update on this particular code. Thank you. I support it.
Further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, please take a roll call vote on the motion.
Thank you. The motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2318, Councilmember Johnson.
No.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Villar.
Yes.
Councilmember Rubio.
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
No.
Motion to adopt ordinance serial number 2318 passes with Councilmembers Sullivan Leonard, Brown, Villar, and Rubio in support, Graham and Johnson opposed.
Thank you. We are now at persons to be heard. It's a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. And the first up is Mr. Stearns.
Good evening, my name is Tom Stearns. I'm the Senior Ambassador for the Wasilla Area Seniors Incorporated. What's happening with us? We have a new chairman of fund development, somebody that their job is to figure out how we're going to get all the funds. Her name is Miranda Gibson, is our new fund development manager. She and the fund development committee are ramping up for many exciting activities for the upcoming holidays. Then I say stay tuned, except she told me what those things were. So Fund Development is currently excited to announce that we are now focusing on our annual fall fundraiser, my oh my, it's pie, in which we are looking for sponsors and donors. Sponsors will be recognized in our newsletters, social media, and all event handouts. Donations can be made towards the overall fundraiser, or we can accept donations of items for our online auction. We would greatly appreciate donations of auction items to be delivered by October 27th. Let's see, another upcoming event, as you recall, last year in November, we had our holiday craft fair. We're going to have it again this year on the 4th and the 5th of November. So if you're planning your holiday gifts and stuff, come to our craft fair and you might find something there. If you're one of the people that would like to sell stuff, the tables are $25. Contact Kim Wolf at 206-8803, and she can get you situated with that. Then we have one of our board members and WASI seniors, Nancy Bidwell, is putting together a WASI cookbook and is looking for family recipes with related stories due by September 15th. What we wanted, so the books will be ready for the upcoming auction and holiday craft fair. So submit recipes to Nancy Bidwell or Kim Wolf. I was going to make an invitation to visit our grounds, but seeing that it's raining like it is now, probably not. But come and visit and have a meal with us. Aspen House, those folks are getting wet because they're building a building. And so another Aspen House will be available next soon. Anyway, any questions?
Okay, and next is Karen Crandall. And please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name. Your comments is limited to 3 minutes.
Okay. My first name is Karen and last name is Crandall. I'm just coming as a concerned citizen of the valley and also living in the Big Lake, Wasilla area. I just wanted to bring to your attention my viewpoints concerning the types of books that we're having at our libraries, and the one that I'm referring to especially because it concerns you is the Wasilla Public Library. And I feel that I have a list of books that are there that are available to young adults, and they're very questionable. If you were to look at the computer site of booklooks.org, you can look at this list of 42 books that we've listed, and I think you guys have all gotten these book lists already, I'm not sure. But I'm going to give them to you. And the question is that the librarian, Zane Trish, feels that the parents are the ones making a decision on what types of books their children read. And unfortunately, the parents are determining what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. But if you were to go into booklooks.org and check these out, and the librarians need to do that, they're very short excerpts. I have one, for instance, Red Hood. It's only just a short page that you can print off or look at. This other one called Damsel, very questionable book, very promiscuous, very pornographic. All of these are extreme pornographic. So what we're having is we're exposing to our children things that are just a way of life that is bringing us down as a generation of people, and it's going to bring disaster upon us, and it's going to get worse. We already have 500 million people that are sold into sex slavery, and this is a sex slavery grooming that's going on at the local level and at the national level, and we need to really be concerned. One book that I'm going to refer to is Red, White, and Blue, and Royal Blue, and it's about a president's son who tries to keep his romance with the Prince of England a secret. And this book contains excessive and frequent profanity, obscene sexual activity, sexual nudity, alcohol, drug use, and alternative sexualities. Is my time up?
1 minute.
Okay. So then it has a content warning if you go onto the site. And the warning is, it is illegal. These should not even be available for adults, because what happens with an addiction to pornography is you have a disaster with family and marriage. And it's a real plague upon our society. So my viewpoint is that these books shouldn't be in the adult area, and they should all be removed.
Thank you. And next up is Karen Lewis. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and your comments are limited to 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, ma'am, what did you want me to do with these?
Look at it.
Look at it? Okay.
Madam Mayor and City Council, thank you for hearing us on this because it is vital.
Would you please state your
My
first
name is
and last name?
Karen Lewis. I did have a meeting with Zane Trish, who is the librarian at Wasilla, and I challenged a book called Identical, and he told me, he wrote to me and told me he's going to leave it where it is, which is, it's in young adults, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, get this? And this is just an excerpt from it. You, like Karen said, you can go to Book Looks and you pull up and find Identical, and it's got, this one has 15 pages. Some only have like 4. But this one is on page 150, and this is what it says. Someone had closed the curtain. Kaylee was scared. Kaylee's 9 years old. She's an identical twin. I tried to tell her not to worry, but just then, Daddy burst through the door. I closed my eyes tight, made myself no more than a shadow. Something about him was different. I didn't want that something to find me. I cracked my eyes just a slit as he sat on Kaylee's bed and pulled her into his lap. He smelled of brute and wild turkey, his peculiar potpourri. I love you so much, my little flower. Daddy needs something from my girl, my sweet rose. Will you give it to me? I wanted to be his little flower, would have given my daddy anything. What did he want from Kaylee? She laid her head on his chest. What? I want you to see something, something that proves how much I love you. This is only for you, Kaylee girl. He lifted her gently, sat her down on the bed beside him, then he opened the snaps on the fly of his flannel pajamas. It stood up, stiff as a stalagmite. See how much Daddy loves you? Show me. You love me too. Touch it. He closed her hand around it. I know it sounds bad, but I wanted to touch it too. I didn't know what it meant, only that it made Daddy happy. I wanted to make him happy too. That's right, that's right. His voice rocked in rhythm with his body. Oh yes, my Kaylee loves me, my little flower. When Daddy finished, he burrowed his face into Kaylee's hair and wept. Confused at his tears and at the sticky stuff icing her hands, still Kaylee pleaded, Don't cry, Daddy. What's the matter? Didn't I love you good enough? Yes, you loved me good enough. So very good. But it's our secret, okay? Because if anyone knew how much you love me, they'd be jealous. Now, Kaylee was really confused. Can I tell Mama our secret? No, especially not Mama. She'd get mad because she doesn't love me like you. She might even go away. You don't want that, do you? She thought it over again and again, but she finally agreed. I won't tell Daddy. I won't tell Daddy. Pulled her against him. Good. That's very good. It's okay to have secrets between Daddy and his girl. Just remember, no one likes a tattletale, especially not Daddy. That's just one excerpt from, and this is only a 4 out of 5. 5 is the worst. This is a 4. We've got 43 of these type of books at the Wasilla Library. Let's do something about this, please. A committee, maybe. A committee to check it, to put the books
And
on the
next
shelves.
will be, your time's up, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next is Jackie Goforth. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name, and comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Wasilla Mayor and City Council, my name is Jackie Goforth. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak with you. I am very concerned about the books that are in the libraries. Some of them should not even be in them, and some of them really should be in young adult. Now, the criteria for selection over at the library here in Wasilla is the author's reputation and significance as a writer. Number 2, the importance of subject matter to the collection. Number 3, the availability of material in other libraries or in print. Number 4, the timeliness or permanence of the book. Number 5, authoritativeness. Number 6, inclusion in standard bibliographies or indexes. Number 7, price. Number 8, demand. Number 9, format, including quality of binding, type, legibility, and illustrations. Nowhere in here does it address the fact that there happens to be a law against distributing pornography or obscenity to children, to minors. There is. The First Amendment is not under attack here. The First Amendment has limitations on it. It always has had. If you look at William and Mary College, they address it and they say, governments has put limitations on the First Amendment because of safety and health of the public. You cannot go in a crowded building and yell fire without consequences. You cannot say you're going to assassinate someone without consequences. I think a man in Utah just proved that 2 weeks ago. You cannot distribute pornography and print it and send it to children. It's a law. It's called the Alaska Statute 11.61.128. Now in there, it describes what obscenity entails, and there's something called a Miller-Ginsburg test. Now if a book meets all the items in the Miller-Ginsburg test, it is obscene. It should not be given to children. This book has some reviews that are extremely graphic on it. It entails a child, well, a young adult, who is a werewolf hunter, but it doesn't happen until she has her menses. It is extremely bloody and gory, and it includes a rape scene where a father with his daughter, an incest relationship. And I also appealed to Zane about this, and I had my reconsideration hearing with him. And at that point, he said, no, we meet all the criteria of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, 8, all the way to 8. Well, Debbie Does Dallas got great reviews too. It was an 8 out of 10 on the movies. It was one of the top VHSs sold in the 70s. It's still pornographic. It doesn't matter what the reputation of the author is. Do you know that if you sell cigarettes to a minor, it doesn't matter if the parents said it was okay to do it? They're going to have a problem with the person who sold the cigarettes. So if the parents said that their children can check out any book and they don't care what it is, who are the police or the troopers going to chat with when they distribute this book to a minor? And who's going to defend the librarian? The city?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And next is Diane Keller. Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes.
My name is Diane Keller. My message is directed to the public servants Sullivan, Leonard, Brown, Graham, Belock, Johnson, and Rubeo. I was recently reviewing the city minutes and had to come to personally thank you for repealing Ordinance 2238. I would also like to know when the overdue audit will be provided to the council so the public can have access to information purchased with our tax dollars. Additionally, I think an explanation is in order for the DEC letter about our sewer system pilot program. Taxpayers paid approximately $1 million to create a program to keep the system compliant, and the program failed. Why? Because we couldn't timely report information and renew our agreement. As agreed, the fix will be to do another $1 million study and create another program and hire more experts to clean up the mess. Literally millions of dollars flushed down the toilet. This whole thing happened because we had a 300% turnover in our Public Works Department in less than 3 years. This is unacceptable leadership and administrative oversight. Thank God, lower level city staff know what to do. I'm so grateful that they've kept us going in such a chaotic leadership environment. Our government is built on checks and balance system. You are the balance for the person that writes the check. I am also part of the check and balance system, and I have failed. I have been very busy during the last 3 years, just like everyone else. My family has built our home in the city during that time. We have full-time commuting jobs, as well as dealing with our own medical issues. I have failed because I haven't looked at agendas or other pertinent information to understand what our public servants are doing. I am no longer a citizen. I've allowed myself to become a resident, and I am part of the problem. I would hope that with all you've heard tonight, you will ask more questions and demand more answers from this administrator. We deserve, at a minimum, reports that keep all public servants and taxpayers informed of the status of all tax-funded projects. I am willing to volunteer my time to these council members to help understand why their job is so vitally important. I have called every one of you in the past. You have my number, and you know I want to be part of the solution. I have invested over 12 years of my life sitting in every position at this table, and we have got to wake up. We cannot afford the way we are going. Thank you very much.
Okay, and next is Vern Rubright. And please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Vern Rubright. I am a city resident. Just a couple of quick things. I noticed about your websites, you know, everybody wants to rely on this electronic world after, even in light of the fact we had our candles blown out here just last week and had no power in part of the city. Joan Matthews still shows up on there, was on the Parks and Recs Commission. If I don't miss my guess, the poor woman's been gone 6 months or more. I mean, that's kind of interesting. Or am I wrong? No, I'm right. So, I mean, who's keeping up with this kind of stuff? She's supposedly on Parks and Rec still? She isn't around. So, you want to rely on, you know, all your publications and all this electronic media? Have at it. I do note that you've given $15,000 to Josh Fryfogel's Enterprises. Good, because I like the music in the park. Being retired, and I've had a lot of ill health with heart implants in my heart, valves, cancer, and everything else since I stopped working as an attorney and being the mayor of this city. So, hey, I got to take care of me now. But we got $15,000 going over to the guy that owns the People's Paper, and that's got a 17,000 person circulation in this valley, free. And a lot of people read it. Now, I'm old enough to have come through carbon paper and old mimeographs to the computer world. It's always been a shift and a swift, and it's not been easy. But I don't rely on the damn computer world, because it'll fail you every time when you've got websites that I was looking at the city's websites. I'm trying to navigate this thing, and I'm not completely stupid when it comes to computers. I just wonder about that, you know. Then he's getting 15 grand. I mean, nobody once said, who needs to go to the Frontiersman? The People's Paper is of general circulation, and it's free. That's why people pick it up. 17,000. Frontiersman has never had that much circulation. So you didn't even consider it. I'm sorry. And you know, I'm sure he would have made you a deal on his advertising, since he gets 15,000 from this city to do these other programs. That could have helped. And then, as to lost property, I don't know. I trust the chief's word, because I've got 2 lost firearms in this state, stolen, and that's all been reported. I'd like to know where those darn things are. And I'm not going to rely on any website to find out, oh, we found it, oh, by the way. That just doesn't work for me. So, all I can say is, you know, it's just a few simple things, because I find it tough really navigating your websites. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the council at this time? Please begin your testimony by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes.
My name is Diane Woodruff. I am a resident of the city of Wasilla, have been for some years. I would like to say that I agree with former Mayor Carroll regarding her concerns. I think that's a pretty big issue, and it needs to be addressed. It seems to be more important than things like new city halls and annexations and whatever things, because man, when the sewer doesn't work, that shuts everything down. It's a huge deal. So we need to figure out what happened there and then see if we can't get this back on track. I would also like to thank Mayor Rubright. He actually had a very good suggestion. People's Paper is free, and they are always begging for news, so that might be an easy answer for publication free. And I think I want to thank Councilmember Graham and Johnson for recognizing that not everybody is in the internet age. I have a neighbor next door who in fact does not have a Facebook page, doesn't have websites much. I have to confess that I'm pretty bad. I don't even log into the Frontiersman as often as I should now that it's more digital. So I think it's nice that there is that provision, at least for going ahead and advertising in paper, and I am kind of sad to see that that wasn't really recognized by everybody. Some of us are still of an age where computers are optional. So thanks for that. I did want to say something nice about the park. I noticed the Adida Park has some new signage there for the settling ponds and other things that are informative. And I'm not sure who all is doing all of the gardens this year. I know some are done by the Valley Garden Club, but some nice person put in the little plant stickers, the ones that come in your potted plants that tell you what it is and have all the information. Somebody made a nice little row in one of the gardens in the city, so it's kind of like a mini arboretum. I'd like to continue to encourage that and thank whoever it was that has been working on those gardens. They look really good right now. So other than that, I think that's it. Thank you all for the work that you do, and thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we are on to consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the title of the items for approval under the consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have the regular meeting minutes, August 14th, 2023. We do have one introduction. It was moved to new business. No resolutions, and we have 3 AMs under the consent agenda. The first is AM number 2336, contract award to Specialized Pavement Marking in the amount of $46,000 for airport pavement maintenance phase 2. AM number 2337, contract award to Fox Partners LLC in the amount of $145,207 for the installation of a bi-directional amplifier and distributed antenna system at the Menard Center. And lastly, AM number 2339, contract extension to Big Dipper Construction in the amount of $505,000 for the city's fiscal year 2023 equipment rental with operator contract.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
So moved by Councilman Johnson.
Is there a second?
Councilman Brown, second.
Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion is approved. There is no unfinished business. We are now on to new business. Madam Clerk, please read the first item under new business.
Thank you. That would be introductions with the recommended public hearing date September 11th, 2023, ordinance serial number 2319, amending the official zoning map of the city of Wasilla to change the zoning from commercial to industrial for Lot 3, Olympic Edition 1 subdivision, and providing for an effective date.
Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, this is a discussion item because we're not really adopting it at this point. Is that correct? So I wanted to bring up a discussion point on this.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt. Sorry. So typically, when we have ordinances, the first step of the ordinance enactment procedure per code, I call it a first reading, and the first reading is simply to introduce the ordinance. Generally, we don't get into discussion. If we do, it's on the merits of the introduction. If it's an ordinance that the council doesn't support, then generally what happens is after we have the main motion to set for public hearing, somebody introduces a motion to postpone indefinitely, effectively killing the ordinance. That's generally what we do.
So
You move it for introduction.
What? I would move it just for an introduction then, so that we could have a short discussion.
And would you like the public hearing then, September 11th, 2023?
Yes, please.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So, Mr. Johnson, you have made a motion for discussion purposes.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been made by Councilmember Johnson, seconded by Councilmember Graham for discussion purposes only. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. I've talked to a representative of our planning commission. I've talked to acting director of our planning, and from a standpoint of what the intent of the use of this property is, I really don't see any real objection. However, my fear is when we go from commercial to industrial, because the proposed person is an industrial operator and he wants to park heavy equipment onto this particular property. My fear is that this becomes a collector for unused and scrapped equipment, and I really do not want to see additional properties allocated to scrap yards. If you just move about 300 yards down the road, we already have a big yard there, which is sort of a collector of that, of quote auction equipment, some of which never moves because it's just sitting there and rotting. If you go just up the road, we've got another scrap yard. And I'm afraid that I just don't want to see this happen to this particular property. And if there's any way that we could get an assurance that the property will be used for active equipment that would support roads and airports and things like that, and not just become a scrapyard, I'd fully support it. Thank you.
Is there further discussion?
Madam Mayor? Sorry, Madam Mayor. I did watch the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting with regard to this particular issue, and maybe Crystal could remind me. I didn't see an objection from Planning Commission on this, and I believe Chris Neeser spoke, and I guess I didn't see anything disparaging in there, so am I missing anything? Is Mr. Johnson bringing up something I've missed on that?
No, so Sullivan Leonard, you are right that there was unanimous consent to approve this. It was an application that we received because of the proximity to the railroad and poor soils, and their use of that property is what they would call a holding yard. But Councilmember Johnson brings up a very good point, and his timing is excellent, because everything for the use of land is in this table, and we have nowhere in here that defines a scrap yard, but we have junk yard. And so this conversation will be very relevant to tomorrow night when we have applications that come in for one use and we don't categorically have that use per se, but we have something kind of close to it. Now keep in mind, if in somewhere in the future, if they were to change that use, they would have to go through the process again of getting a new permit. It would have to go through the whole public process. So I'll let legal answer from here.
I just want to dovetail on what the Deputy Administrator Mayor is saying. And one thing that we have to remember is when you rezone, when you consider an ordinance to rezone, you're acting legislatively. You are not acting the way that you act if, say, a permit has been appealed to you. It's a very odd arena that you're in. And that means the decision you make is based on when I'm looking at this property, does it make sense now that they have applied for this to be industrial? And then there are criteria that are applied by the Planning Commission and then the council in considering whether or not to rezone. So their use of the property, say for a scrapyard, that analysis, and this is exactly, I mean, it's exactly right. The question is, what do we allow in commercial and what do we allow in industrial? And is there something about this property that council believes when we get to this ordinance, you know, that, and at the hearing, that it should remain commercial, or is it appropriate and does it meet the criteria to be zoned industrial? So we just want to be very careful, because if we start talking about the property based on the use, we get very close to what's called spot zoning. And that's when we change zoning for one piece of property for one user. So that is actually not lawful, but the rezoning process we have in Wasilla and in other communities, that involves a more a higher level consideration of things like, well, is it adjacent to the district it's trying to be rezoned? Does it fit within the type of use? And so Deputy Administrator Nygaard will walk council through, I anticipate, those criteria and what the commission's thoughts were regarding those at the September 11th meeting if this motion passes. But that's just sort of a introduction as you go through the packet materials.
Mr. Graham?
So, Holly, as long as you got the microphone there. So are you saying it would be inappropriate then for the council to allow the rezone with restrictions? Is that what you're saying when you're talking about spot zoning? It can be industrial, but it can't be used for, scrapyard or permanent storage. I mean, I'm not sure I understood exactly what you were saying. I know the Planning Commission, when I listened to this meeting, they talked about some various uses and restrictions, but what you just told me was that, or what I heard was that we can't restrict the use if it's not currently restricted in a code.
So there might be two processes wrapped up in one. For example, you may approve a rezone, the council may choose to go that direction because of the nature of the property and the criteria as applied. And then the owner will look at what they need to do for an administrative permit, conditional use permit, or no permit for the use based on what is permitted within that district. That's the appropriate way for a rezone, because a rezone is not a permitted, it's not a permit process specific to the individual, even though it very much feels like it is. And it's different in states across the country. Some are legislative, some are quasi-judicial. So it's extremely confusing for everyone, across the United States. So we're in good company, but when we're figuring it out, I think that's why I always feel that if we're talking about it, there is this inclination to look at the use. And what we really need to do is look at the use of the area, look at the proposed use as it applies to the use of that district. And so while we're talking about an individual and an individual parcel, we have to think about it in a municipal zoning and land use planning realm. And so I know it's not easy, and we will work together to walk through the criteria with the council and some of these concepts of spot zoning and rezoning, so you're confident in whatever decision you make.
Is there further discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, then this will come back on the September 11th. So, would you, Madam Clerk, please read the next item under new business?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. AM number 2338, contract award to Confluence Strategies Incorporated in the amount of $59,000 for municipal lobbyist services.
Madam Mayor, I move AM number 2338.
Is there a second?
Madam Mayor, I second that.
It's been moved by Councilmember Graham and seconded by Councilmember Velod. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last year when this came up, do we really need a lobbyist for the city at $60,000 or roughly that amount per year when we already have a mayor and a deputy administrator? And as I recall, when that deputy administrator position was created, part of that was to allow other staff more time and to allow the deputy administrator time to work on lobbying issues. But obviously we have a lobbyist, and having someone of considerable knowledge as to the legislative process and with great contacts is certainly a benefit to the city. I don't see it being worth $59 million, but when I read through a Confluence Strategies here, and first question would be, were they the only bidder? I don't see any other proposals. So they were the only bidder, thank you, Joan. So they were the only bidder, but I do see that Confluence Strategies, or in this case CSI has secured hundreds of $millions in state and federal funding. Recent examples include Wasilla Airport expansion for $5 million. So that was purely on their, it seemed to me we'd been working on that for quite a while. And then now they're saying, well, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have got that. I mean, I don't know, I'm not real comfortable with this. I'm not sure that I'm gonna vote not to accept this AM, but I just don't see $60,000 worth of lobbying being done when we have a very active mayor and a very capable deputy administrator. No, that's the reason I brought it forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Roll call vote on the adoption of AM number 2338. Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Vilak.
Yes.
Councilmember Rubeo.
Yes.
Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
No.
Councilmember Johnson.
No.
Motion passes with Councilmembers Sullivan Leonard, Brown, Vilak, and Rubio in support. Councilmembers Graham and Johnson opposed.
Under the communication, the items presented are for informational purposes only. Madam Clerk, please read the titles.
Thank you. IM number 2316, monthly financial reports for the period ending July 31st, 2023, to include the month-to-date expenditure report and disbursements greater than $10,000. And it looks like we have Planning Commission meeting minutes August 8th, 2023.
Okay, we are on to audience comments, 3 minutes per person. It's a time for members of the public to share their views with the council. This is not a question and answer period or a time for dialogue. Speakers may be referred to administration, or issues raised may be taken under advisement by the council or administration. Is there anyone present who would like to address the city council? If so, please come forward and begin by stating your first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
My name is Vern Rubright. I'm a city resident. Boy, you gave me more to talk about just in the last 5 minutes. But let's go back to the lost, stolen, whatever property that goes through the police department. For people who turn in cash, you know, somebody should have considered at least like a reward for the returning of cash. You know, it's not often offered, but that sure would have been a way of looking at things too, instead of the cash just being forfeited to the city. You know, so I'm not asking you questions, Ms. Vilak. So, and the junkyard, we've gone through this once before, scrapyard junkyard. For those who know where Diane Keller lives, where the former councilman who died years ago, Steve Lovell, lives, it's down over the hill off of the PW extension. It goes down towards Cottonwood Creek. There's a beautiful corner lot down there that was a junkyard, and it was really nice guy lived there. We gave him warning after warning after warning. It was leaking cars and oil right on that beautiful, right near former Councilman Buswell lives right next door to him. We forced him to clean it up, and it's been stayed cleaned up, and there's a lawn there now. We don't live in a map, 13.5 square miles? It can have scrap yards in it. I mean, seriously. Anybody's been to big cities like, as you get into Boston, Massachusetts, to Chelsea, they turned that into a scrap yard over 100-something years ago, and it's just, the waterfront is just always a mess. So really, I mean, think about this. Scrap yards are junk yards. It's as simple as that. On a map as big as ours, you give that some serious thought. Then as the lobbyist is concerned, during my term as mayor, we paid Sterling in D.C. $40,000 a year, and we paid Frank Bickford, who remained a friend of mine, $30,000 a year, and we did away with the lobbyists. Took them off the books, and we defunded it. And now you're going back for another, $60,000 to a lobbyist in Juneau. And that's why you do have a deputy administrator, you have a mayor, and you council people who go down to Juneau. That doesn't hurt to make the phone calls, and you're spending the money to take these trips. And that is one of the things the deputy administrator is supposed to be working on. So to turn the money over to a lobbyist, I don't know, people. You know, when we saved that 70 grand years ago, it didn't change how much money we got. Thank you very much.
Okay. Please state your first and last name. You're limited to 3 minutes.
My name is Diane Woodruff, and this is kind of an interesting record because Vern and I are actually agreeing on something else. This is an unusual sort of thing, but he was right. We did away with the lobbyists because we figured that we could make contact with our people ourselves, and amazingly enough, I think we were fairly successful at that. And so this is an interesting expenditure of $59,000 that I think could have been avoided. And probably it's really not a good idea. This is picking on him a little bit, but there's a typo in his letter. Anybody notice that too? And I wondered about the money coming through. It says it's for the airport, but I'm wondering if that's more federal pass-through because usually it's federal money that we get for the airport and not state money. Just a little bit of curiosity with that. I think that's sort of where I'm looking and seeing where the conservatives are on the council. So just a note for all of you as you're thinking about the upcoming elections. Think about what claims people make before they get elected and then look at what they do once they get into office. It's instructive. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council at this time? Seeing none?
Oh, sorry, wasn't fast enough.
Please begin by stating your first and last name. You're limited to 3 minutes.
My name is Diane Keller. Public servant Glenda. How many designated parking spots does one Wasilla mayor need? Apparently 2 at the same building, 1 being stolen from a special needs population. Will you please give their spot back to them because you can't possibly use them at the same time? Does the parking area even still comply with our own city code? And why are the taxpayers wasting tax dollars for such a chaotic administrative environment? And why do you throw past and current directors under the bus at campaign events because you can't answer the questions? And again, I ask, do you understand what you are responsible for and what you have done to us? I don't think you do. You have jeopardized our business community by allowing the sewer system to fall into a non-compliant status. What happens when the businesses close because we can't provide the proper service? The cash registers don't ring, and tax dollars aren't collected to meet our obligations. And what happens next time we apply for a competitive grant? We're going to get a big fat 0 in the most important category because we have a late audit. You've removed our competitive edge. All because you couldn't meet a simple annual deadline that everybody knows is there every year. In your 3-year term, the only thing that you have proven is your lack of administrative knowledge, skills, and abilities, and your bumbling incompetence. Taxpayers cannot afford the damage you have done to our community. It's going to take a long time for us to recover. Sadly, taxpayers are again left holding an empty bag from incompetent public servants. In my humble opinion, you have been to Wasilla what the Exxon Valdez was to Alaska. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the council at this time? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a reminder, tomorrow, Tuesday, August 29th, 6 o'clock here in Chambers, we'll have our special meeting with the Planning Commission on Title 16. And so if any of you are at the Alaska State Fair, stop by on the Purple Trail. MACCOM Dispatch and the Police Department have a booth there, and I understand it's very well received. Our Election Review Board will meet here in Council Chambers August 31st at 1 o'clock, and they'll be testing the ballot tabulators that will be used in the election. Next regular meeting after tomorrow night's meeting will be September 11th, and we'll see you all then.
Madam Attorney. Councilmember Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And a couple of brief comments. First, thanks to everybody for being here. It's always good to hear testimony, even if it doesn't agree with what some of us may be thinking, but it's always good to get input to go through. It's also nice to see people here that are just here to listen. I mean, that's pretty unusual. Usually people come to the council and have something on their minds, and that's great, but having people here just to listen and see their government in action is a great thing. Secondly, I would ask a courtesy of council members when we are asked to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Please allow everyone time to stand up before you begin the pledge. Some of us aren't as quick as others, and oftentimes we have folks in the audience which are even slower than I am. So, and I'm not picking on you, Tim, I'm just saying it happens very frequently. So if we stand up and then wait 4 or 5 seconds before we start, it gives people a chance to stand up, take their hats off, and so on and so forth. I would appreciate that courtesy myself. So. Last thing I have is actually for our Public Works Director, Eric. When I'm looking through IM 2316, that talks about how we are doing on the budget. I look at the CIP for roads, and I see that we're 97% committed 1 month into the year. Is that correct?
97% committed for the road fund?
Yes.
That is correct. So the total road bid went out as one package, and it was fine-tuned to use that funding balance, and so you see one paving project that came out of that CIP process.
Okay, so that doesn't mean that it's 97% complete, it's just committed. Correct.
Right. Committed funds because the bid went out and it was 97% of that budget.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Sullivan Leonard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a quick question for Joan, if I could, please. Just with regard to the CAFR, that was something I also was concerned about. And could you let, I guess, the public know kind of what the issue is? And it's something that doesn't usually happen. It's never happened that I've been aware of before. So I think there are extenuating circumstances that people should be aware of.
Thank you, Councilmember Sullivan Leonard, through the mayor. Yes, so for the past 13 years, I was tasked with the planning and execution of the timely issuance of our audited financial statements, to which was done without exception. So what's with the delay for FY22, and it really rests solely with the high turnover that we've had in finance and the prolonged vacancy before those positions were filled. The turnover is from retirements, from a mom who's out on FMLA and decides to resign at the end to stay home with her kids, and another mom that decided to leave the state to be with family. So all very natural occurring events, but just hard to fill once they leave. Additionally, FY22 was the first year of implementation of GASB 87, which fundamentally changed the way we account for leases. It was difficult for both the auditee and the auditors, so that has added an additional hurdle. We have the first draft statements, which I am reviewing. The only finding to my knowledge is the fact of said delay for reports. We are positioned to be on our normal schedule for FY23, which will commence in September.
Just to follow up, Madam Mayor, So will we get FY '22's CAFR in conjunction with '23's then? Or are you gonna do '23 and then we'll get '22 later?
Yeah, so my expectation, and the only reason I can't commit to a date is obviously there's the timeline on our auditors, but I would anticipate in the next couple meetings, we would be bringing forth the FY '22 for acceptance by council. And then in November timeframe would be FY '23's. Because we'll start the audit, their actual audit field work in September.
Okay, all right, thank you. Madam Mayor, just real quick question then with regard to tomorrow evening's joint meeting with the Planning Commission, if I could, with Crystal. So when I looked at the agenda, I believe we're looking at Title 16. Are we also having discussion on the comprehensive plan as well? And how deep do you anticipate that our joint groups would want to delve into that?
Thank you, Sullivan Leonard. It will be primarily 16.
Okay.
Comp plan is definitely a project that has to happen within the next year or so. But 16 has been a conversation, specifically landscaping has been a prolonged conversation with, it's been very polarizing, and it just breeds a lot of uncertainty to investors and general contractors. So that will be the primary focus, and I believe Holly is going to lead us through most of that meeting.
Okay, and then follow up, Madam Mayor. So with regard to the comprehensive plan, they've usually pulled together, Planning Commission members, Parks and Rec, council members, and other folks from the community for a task force in order to go through the comp plan. Has that been discussed? Are we working towards that already then, or are we not even to that stage yet?
No, we are not at that stage yet. We know that it has to be updated, and there's like the SEDS, there's a very distinguished framework that you have to use for that, and that is a project that it will take multiple stakeholders. But I think it's very important that we get very clear on 16 because it is a lot of the body that will affect the comp plan.
Okay, thank you. Madam Mayor, that's it for this evening. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
No comment except for September 11th, I will not be here.
Councilmember Rubeo.
No comment.
Councilmember Vlock.
Thank you, Mayor, and I do appreciate everyone coming, and I am always appreciate the comments. So, and I know there seems to be some confusion on what happens to cash that is turned in, and after Amanda spoke, I thought it was pretty clear that if someone did turn in cash and it was not claimed, that it would go back to the finder. Yes? Is that correct, Chief? That's what Amanda said. So, that it would only be deposited in the city treasury if, for some reason, the finder didn't want it. Is that correct? Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Other than that, thank you.
Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, short comment. I think what was proven in from Amanda, that the police department is already doing a pretty good job, and she and the cabinet custodian have a plan that they've been using, and I think it's a plan that's working pretty well. The city council can always address this again, but I think we should give them a chance to implement their plan and see how it works, and if it doesn't work well, then we have a job to go back and revisit it. Again, thank everyone for coming and expressing your opinions, and that's what the city council is about, and that's what government is about, citizens being involved and expressing their concerns and opinions to make this a better city. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you all for coming. And we will be here tomorrow night at 6 o'clock for Paddle 16. So, with nothing further to come before the council, we are adjourned at 8:23.